Hello and welcome. This is Anukriti from the Logical Indian team, and I am here today with Samrat Sengupta, who is the Program Director of the Climate Change Unit at Center for Science and Environment. And we are here to talk about Uttarakhand's glacier outburst that has led to massive flood and landslide in Chamoli district. Rescue operations are going on. And so, my first question for you is that while some people are saying that it was a flash that the flash flood was caused by the glacier outburst. But at the same time, experts are saying that it was not a natural disaster, rather it was a man-made. So what is your view on that?
Till we have the all complete data set available, it is very difficult to pinpoint. But what is apparently visible from the visuals, it seems like a glacious lake outburst flood. But the occurrence of GLOF in that area is not at all possible because there was no glacious lake being reported on the higher altitude of Nanda Devi biosphere. Because glaciers lake doesn't happen in a day or two. It requires years to form and then come to a certain size before burst. So the next possible scenario, which is DRDO team who are doing the aerial survey is proposing informally at this moment, is technically seems more feasible, is the part of the glaciers broke away, which is a hanging part of the glaciers broke away and caused a massive avalanche few days ago, from the date of this flash flood happened, and the whole snow masses of the avalanche get accumulated downstream somewhere uh, through a natural lake formation by debris. There are rocks and loose soils get accumulated and form a barrier to form the debris wall, and it gets accumulated there, which then melt, and after melting form a lake and then burst out. That's the most possible because this is not the time when the weather situation doesn't support a cloud burst scenario. There is not so much of heavy cloud formation in that area. So it is a glaciers related activity. And yes, the glaciers related activity, why the glaciers has been uh, means give away on certain part of it is a serious question. There may be seismic activity, and this part of the geology is more fragile. It is in the seismic zone 4 and 5, where and this Himalayan mountain range is one of the youngest mountain range which sees lot of such seismic activity, and possibly with the huge infrastructure development interference with this unstable strata of Himalaya that has a quite substantial footprint on incremental frequency as well as amplitude of that kind of seismic activity to happen, which can create land masses, means which can create landslides, and here maybe in the higher altitude it has created an avalanche. Another point, which is the climate change angle, it is known for last 5 decades the impact on climate change, and it is quite established that it is creating a very negative impact on the Himalayan glaciers and its mass balance. So, particularly when this event is happening in the month of February, when ideally glaciers should be at its best physical health, so that is really worrisome. How far these glaciers masses are from its reaching to the tipping point, uh, where the mass balance is going in negative compared to the precipitation happening and the runoff. So that's a worrisome because all our downstream infrastructure, particularly power and irrigation related infrastructure, are getting built on an assumption of freshwater flow through this perennial river system, not particularly on this river, on throughout the range of this perennial river system on Himalaya. And this gives a support to northern Indian food security and energy security and all developmental things. All our rivers are fed by this. So on the global warming angle is really a issue to be considered, and also the unjust interference with this fragile strata on too much of developmental activities which is disturbing the geology.
So, sir, you would say that it was both man-made and okay, so it was a combination.
Both the case both the case it is man-made. Even the climate change we are talking about is a man-made climate change. But from the local point of view or country perspective, we should consider the aspects which we control most, that is the infrastructure development, proper planning, at a basin level planning, and particularly with impact on geology and geological stability should be done before approving of such cascading development, one after another hydro projects on the same river basin. So the road being built up, the tunnel get uh, means it developed through a blasting method. What are the blasting technology? And another very important point, though it has created a 200 odd manpower we have lost who were working there, the water level, it has happened as a flash flood, but it has not seen as a huge kind of event. How the dam which is under operation and under construction get affected, because the dam design should have taken of extreme climatic event parameters in its consideration before approval by any authority, so that it can withstand in such kind of natural disaster. So that has to be also looked upon. Has those parameters been considered during approval process of the design of the dam by competent authority like CEA we used to approve? If that is been approved, has that been considered during the construction or there is any lapses? What is the monitoring during construction happens? So if there is a monitoring system in place, why the lapses happen? This is another point of concern at our day-to-day operational aspects which countries should consider.
And so, could you explain the order in which the glacier outburst and the landslide and everything that followed? Could you explain how it happens? Because it's not very clear to us.
Again, what I going to explain is based on a theory. Without exact data coming out, how much it is actually happened that way is a question. It happens that due to somehow the impact on global warming or the heavy melting of glaciers, the glaciers mass has depleted, and the glaciers strength of the glaciers get weakened. And what DRDO is talking about, the hanging part of the glacier, some part of the ice may be hanging here on the glaciers which get broke away, form a avalanche, came down somewhere in the downstream lowers, get stuck into debris, form a uh, reservoir kind of thing. Then the ice mass get melt away. When it's melt into water, the debris wall get busted, and it creates a flash flood downstream.
But sir, in the satellite images that we saw, there was no hanging glacier on the images. The satellite images don't have those. So, what
And
could have possibly happened if not that?
if means if not that, the second, if it is not hanging glaciers or part of the glaciers coming down, the second theory is cloud burst. But is there is sufficient concentration of the cloud to happen a cloudburst of scenario like that? Nobody is talking about that. So till we are not having all the data, what DRDO is doing, all or our geological survey of India is coming out with the data, or our weather department coming out with the exact data, it is very difficult to preempt any
Mhm.
assumption or any right kind of assumption.
Okay. And so, how is this hydro power plant project that were happening there responsible for the disaster? So there were too many hydro power plants. So how does it affect the glaciers and the entire river?
This there is no direct impact on the glaciers, but when, as I have told that Himalaya is a very unstable and constantly moving strata. There are various fault lines in that particular region where it has happened, particularly the village where it get affected. You you can see that in 1970s there was a similar kind of flood happening there, and after that the Chipko movement has been a great movement has been come out from that particular village. Was well known for as the origin of the Chipko movement to conserve the or to conserve the forest, to stop the deforestation activities there by the villagers. So people do understand the importance of the vegetation and forest there. So when this kind of very dense one by one hydro and other development work is going on, definitely the deforestation is happened, which makes the topsoil more vulnerable, as well as through the blasting and other activities on the unstable geology will make it will be more seismic prone on that area where because seismic activity is quite regular in that place. So the intensity of those seismic activity may get enhanced through such kind of unjust interference with geology. So these are our probability. Unless and until we have a basin level geological study being done and then plan according, because we cannot say that we don't want power. Power is required. But how much is we can done without with very minimum impact on that fragile geology is the question. So we have to come up as a national level, a basin level study, not on project-based EIA that gives a very limited boundary to work on the impact part of it. When we do a basin level study and not particularly on the just biota aspects of it or social aspect of it, but more on the geological aspects of it, the seismicity aspects of it, then we can come out with some more regulated and measured approach in our uh, this infrastructure development.
And also, sir, even the locals, when the hydropower plants were being set up, even the locals warned the authorities that, it's risky to plant so many dams and all those things in that riverbed. So, why do you think that happened, even though that area is considered as ecologically fragile zone, as you
Mhm.
mentioned? So then, why was this approved? This shouldn't have been approved in the first place.
There is some basin level study being carried out in 2011 and 12. There are data available in public domain of the study done by you, of course. But if you run through the study, the geology aspects, though part of the terms of reference of the study, but the actual study has not gone in details to understand, model, and study the future impact of any kind of development happening there on the geology. So I think that particular parameter is neglected. It is a means cumulative responsibility of the authority or at the establishment level who has overlooked, and we this is the high time we should go back and do our study, and then whatever project has been developed, we cannot destroy it. Taking that as a baseline to see how much further interference we should do, unless we will come into a very messy situation in future when such kind of incidents will be more frequent.
So, do you see any similarity between the Kedarnath disaster and the recent one?
From the origin, they are different. That was a cloud burst. It's maybe through glaciers melt. But on the impact side, there is similarity because the early warning system is not in place. Suppose in this particular place, when the if suppose the theory of glaciers breakdown and avalanche has really happened, it takes maybe 2 to 3 days to convert into a flash flood. So if there is an early warning system, at least we will be having sufficient evacuation time to avert any kind of human loss. We have lost 200 lives. That should have been averted. So both the cases, the early warning system, either through remote sensing or through physical station establishment, weather station or water flow station in the very upper side of the higher reach of the basin below the glaciers should have been considered by authority as a safety not only for those projects but also for the habitation around those basin areas. As a low hanging immediate measures, we should go back and see whatever regulations we are already in place, how much that is getting implemented in letter and spirit in actual work. I think there is a sufficient gap of the actual regulation and implementation. The approval document, what it is specified in terms of its technicality and actually what is being done. So we have to, from the establishment side, sufficient monitoring, and monitoring without lapses, without corruption, should be first level of activity. Second level, as a basin level planning, again you go back to the drawing board, again try to understand the future scenario. And third is that when if the global warming is creating such a havoc on the glaciers that it has reached to a level that in the month of February we have avalanche, so it might be very close to the tipping point of the mass balance. If that's so, how far we are having a stable water discharge or water flow on that river? Is it not going to diminish in future? Then what will happen on the huge investment we as a country doing on those infrastructure development? It will not able to generate the power what it is designed for. Then the investment will not have a required return or benefit for the country.
So, sir, thank you so much for talking. I hope this clarifies our audience's questions as well. And thank you so much for joining, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.